In our last episode, we chatted with Phil Diasinos, owner of the Agora Farm, host of the Critical Mass podcast on all things entrepreneurship and business. Join us today for part 2 of the conversation.
Chartered account that's living life in the black. Run through the chaos, never looking back. Realize one mission, leading with heart. In finance and fatherhood, they play every part. Oh, no.
All right. Welcome to the Ash, Hubert and Kevin pod. We are the Accountads, the podcast for the finance and accounting leaders, strategizers, thinkers and doers, and the pod for all-round good guys. And we have an all-round good guy today in Phil from the Critical Mass pod, owner of multiple businesses, all-round Mario Kart champion between him and Hubert. Welcome, Phil.
Welcome. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for coming on. Nice shirt. Hubert, tell us a bit about your relationship with Phil and why it's taken you a long time to just get one win over him in Mario Kart.
All right, so Phil, he's been a good mate of mine since high school. We had a lot of adventures together. I guess now we're looking into his business side of the world. And when it comes to Mario Kart, he wishes he's better than me. No, we've had a lot of good battles and he knows I'm better than him, so...
I'll let him win one or two.
You know what? We should do one live Mario Kart.
Yeah.
One of these episodes.
It should be high stakes.
Winner takes all, right?
Yeah.
All glory. That's it.
Let's do it.
The final countdown.
episode.
If Phil wins, you get all the fame. Hubert's model cars. That'll hit him where it hurts.
He stopped the conversation.
It's all good, bro.
He knows he's already lost it.
I know I'm going to win anyways. That's all good.
And there's another rivalry too. You guys, like Phil goes for Bulldogs. Hubert, you go for the Eels.
Yes. That's all.
Must be a tough 30 years, Hubert.
I mean, look, I've become used to it. It's like just the Eels. I mean, look, I love the Eels because that's where I'm from, man. So it doesn't matter if they win or lose. It's still my team.
Yeah, premiership's overrated.
Well, why do I care about premierships for, man?
Have you ever been tempted to swap over to Bulldogs?
Never. I'll never go to Bulldogs. Especially when you got guys like this supporting them. No chance.
Premiership winners.
All right, Hubert, over to you.
All right. So the last episode we talked about a few businesses, and so I guess what I want to try and focus on this episode is benefit the viewers as well, is sort of your journey into becoming an entrepreneur. So we went to high school together. I guess in that school that we went to, a lot of the kids there did end up going to university, getting the 9-to-5 jobs. Guys like me. So that's how we sort of progressed through, and a lot of our friends sort of that's how they ended up being. So my question to you is, because I know you grew up in a family business, did you always know you were going to be an entrepreneur, or did you sort of feel the pressure to go with the flow with all the kids in the school where you finished uni, got a 9-to-5 job? And I guess so I just want to know that mindset of when did you know that you were an entrepreneur more than a 9-to-5 sort of worker?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always had the inclination to do business like ventures and stuff like that, and burning CDs in high school and all that sort of. But yeah, I felt always was drawn towards that. But my family, ironically, came from the business background and were pushing me more to get a tertiary education and go down the employee sort of route. And that's where I started. So yeah, I started.
Why is that? Sorry, did they just want you to diversify away from the family, or?
Yeah, they didn't like me that much. And then it was look, business is it's like we said, it's high risk, and I guess going through the pitfalls and some of the challenges, and I guess my dad worked very long hours, and having the challenges of like balancing family life was always a bit difficult. So probably for that reason they said maybe push me down that sort of path. But they have done very well, and they've had businesses that have survived. Like their current business is 34 years old, so over 3 decades, which statistically is I think it's like 1% or something make it that far. So they've done well, but yeah, they just had I guess the idea of an easier life than potentially like a business where it's higher stakes and higher risk, high reward sort of scenario. So yeah, that's
nice. Sorry, Hubert, cut you off.
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, follow the question. I guess so you did experience that whole 9 to 5 life. So how does that compare to? I guess now you sort of been in both worlds, where you've done 9 to 5, you've done some entrepreneurship, tried some businesses. What is sort of like, I guess, for the benefit of the viewers, like what are sort of the differences you find? What are the pros and cons? Or like, and do you regret anything, or do you sort of wish you started something earlier? That kind of stuff. Yeah.
I don't regret anything. I learnt every business I worked in, either for myself or for someone else. Great experience, great value. I learnt from a lot of great minds. And it's not for everyone. So some people, I think, are better suited to 9 to 5, and that's how they can contribute best and get the best results. And I think some people don't feel comfortable working on 9 to 5. So I started working. As we talked about last episode, did engineering as one of my degrees, and went down that sort of route. I worked for a company. I actually went, and we'll talk about how highly competitive it is to get a job, because a lot of this isn't really talked about when you start the course, but then as you get closer to the end of the course, you start to realize. And I knew people that applied for 60 or 70 positions, and might have had one interview or not heard back at all, which became scary. So then when we started going through the interview process, I met with a company who was in the gas and heating industry, and there was 400 applicants, and they asked me a question: what do you find exciting about gas heaters? And I sat there and I thought to myself, and I could have said, "Oh yeah, heating's great. You heat your family, feel good, and all this." But I just felt compelled to be honest, and I said, "Look, to be honest, not a lot. Like, I'm not that interested by gas heaters, but I do want to contribute and I want to give back." And I walked out of the room and I was just like, "You idiot!" Like people are applying for 60 jobs. This is like your first interview, and you tell them that you're not interested in what they're selling. And ironically, a few weeks later, I got a call back, and they said, "We want you to come back in for another interview." And out of all the people we spoke to, you're the only one that gave an honest answer. So by like, it was counterintuitive, but by being honest, it kind of got me the next interview, then ultimately the job, which was a 9 to 5 sort of position. So it was like a engineer entry level sort of role, and I was working on these gas products and in a 9 to 5 position. But I found myself, I couldn't sit in that seat. Like I would just be like going through like emails and reviewing products and learning. Like had 6 or 7 projects on the boil, which I like that, because I like having many things, like many plates spinning at the same time. I feel like I work best under that sort of situation. But then I couldn't stay in my chair. I was down with the guys in manufacture, looking at their the heaters, and like they were pulling apart in service, and they were swearing they couldn't get them apart. And I said, "Well, what's the problem?" And so I like problem solving. I quickly realized that my value wasn't in the chair; it was walking around and kind of giving back. And I kind of had that freedom from my employer. So I had a great Scott Smith was his name, and he was a great leader and a great boss, really. And I kind of, but ultimately I felt as though having that 9 to 5 position was a bit of a cap on what I could give and how I could serve. And then I went on to other roles. I went to an engineering role in a laser engineer. So I worked for a large company in sheet metal manufacture, a large Japanese company, and I traveled to Japan, did training there, and was on a field engineer role, installing machines all over the country, which was a better fit because I was able to problem solve actively and started to grow on that. But once again, I still had this burning desire that I wasn't contributing, and ultimately, like when they write on my gravestone what I did, and I feel as though that wasn't my ultimate calling. So I've always felt that there was more to my professional career and how I could give back, and then I started to do some other like the Tony Robbins programs and things like that, and working with other entrepreneurs and finding that there was ways to make a living doing what you loved, and also giving back or satisfying those professional goals or those life goals.
Yeah. So I guess, did you find, because I know there's some guys, business guys out there like Tony Robbins. I know you went to one of his seminars. Do you recommend that for someone who's sort of looking to, like, who does that benefit? Does it benefit for someone who's like entrepreneur type, or does it benefit the standard, like, your blue collar, sort of just 9 to 5 people? Does it have a benefit for them? And do you recommend viewers to look at some of those seminars like that,
Yeah,
it's worthwhile.
for sure. Look, it doesn't have to be specifically that, but I believe he's a tried and tested leader in the industry. And I found, once again, talking to lots of people in the crowd, there was businesses like that bring all their staff to kind of open their mind and see the possibilities. And there was also entrepreneurs and coaches, PTs, all walks. And so I do, and I feel as though I grew a lot. And I went to the first one, and it was kind of like Michelle, my wife, pushed us to go to it and said, look, like we kind of need to make a change. Things are, you're not kind of happy in your career. Maybe this could be a way of seeing outside of the box. And we're like, well, it's $1,000 a ticket. Can we afford it? And then when we went there, they kind of offered a package that was for all the other events that he offers, and a lot of them weren't even in Australia. I went to Fiji, been to Las Vegas, but then we looked at this package and we're like, can we afford not to do this? Because like what it offered and what it could open up was life changing. So we ultimately I leveraged myself to the wazoo to make it happen, and I don't regret that at all. And being surrounded by you're the result of the people you hang out with the most, right? So being surrounded by entrepreneurial types and successful business owners and CEOs and all those people that those events tend to attract, I feel accelerated my growth. And so I do highly recommend it, but I think you have to be at the right stage in your life, because they've got like a money back guarantee. Like if you're not satisfied on day one, you can leave. And I could tell the crowd maybe shrunk by 5-10% by day two, because some people just don't feel comfortable there. You're high-fiving strangers, you're doing all these sort of weird things where a lot of people feel uncomfortable, and it's not for them, and that's fine. But I think I 100% recommend giving programs like that a go. He's also getting a lot older now, so he's probably harder to get programs with specifically him. So I don't know if he's coming to Australia anymore. I'm not sure.
I've heard it's very high energy. I listened to a couple of podcasts, and one of the guys talking about it was talking about it's like that honey, I'm home energy. Like, he's everything in that conference is like super high energy, super intense, just gets you, even if you're introverted, gets you up on your feet, doing like weird, crazy things. What's one thing that was very uncomfortable that they got you doing in the seminar that you were grateful for, that stands out?
I climbed I don't know what it was, 8-meter telegraph pole and jumped onto a trapeze that was 6 foot away, which, is very far outside of my comfort zone. And that was,
We're still talking about Tony Robbins here?
Right.
Or is this a post-Bulldogs game?
That's where the police chasing you. Different. But that was in Fiji, and I feel like that was a very like a turning point in my life, because they kind of broke that down, and there's a lot of like irony, which like the universe is irony, I believe, and for that event I got chosen. Like I'm not good with not the best with heights. Like I'm a quite capable climber in a controlled environment. But this was in Fiji with like a rickety rope, and there was kind of like a bunch of Fijian blokes that were kind of holding it as belaying, and people were jumping and swinging and hitting the pole, and I was just like, I don't really want to do this. But they just said, break it down into digestible steps. Like, can I climb a rung? Well, I could do that. Yeah. Can I climb the next rung? Yes. Can I do the next rung? And so if you look at the whole challenge in one action, it seemed impossible for myself. But could I do the steps? Could I get to the top? Yes. Could I climb on top? And then when I was standing on top, I was just like, I'm not doing this. But I remembered why I was there, and my son was born at the time. My daughter was on the way, and I just decided that like at that point in my life, like it was only forward. It wasn't just myself I'd be letting down by taking the easy route. And then so after that, I just decided I was going to do it, and I was probably one of maybe 10 out of the group of 100 that successfully did it. And like I was terrified, but when I jumped and grabbed on, the fear was gone. And like I feel like that hasn't come back. Like even I was still up in the same sort of situation. I still had to let go, I still had to fall down, I still had to do all the rest, but that kind of opened up something for me as well. And So yeah, I that was one of my most one of my more uncomfortable moments at one of those sort of seminars. But I feel like that was a real light bulb moment.
Yeah. Nice, man.
All right.
Sign ourselves up. Sign ourselves up to the
Yeah,
next.
exactly.
Yeah,
next
yeah.
next time we should go.
Yeah, 10% discount on there.
So I guess one of the things when it comes to starting a business now is like you got to find the right partners. Or do you recommend going solo, finding the right partners, finding the right team around you? So I guess I know you met a lot of people in this Tony Robbins networking and that sort of environment. How important is to first decide whether you go solo, find a team? How do you find that team, and how do you find the right partners?
It's a good question. I think there's no simple answer. A lot of it is like intuitive. I've started businesses with great partners. I've started businesses with partners that had good intentions, but went wayward due to various reasons, or other partners that like lost motivation and drive, and the business is dissolved without having done anything. So I guess sometimes it's about making the plunge, but also you have to like we talked about the kind of different profiles of people as well. So sometimes it has to be a good fit in terms of like if someone's a number person and someone's a more of a visionary, you can potentially have a good mix, but also your values and your goals, long-term vision and goals, which we also talked about a little bit before, I think have to be in alignment. So yeah, like it's a difficult question to answer. If you feel as though you can do it alone, and ultimately you still do need to build a team, but initially, depending on your product, if it's just a service, if you're doing like a coaching or PT or something like that, then yeah, you could definitely do it alone. Sometimes it's nice to have someone to share the journey with, and so yeah, I think intuition is important, and dating first. So don't just meet someone, get all fired up, jump into it, and have a clear, have some terms, have an agreement, have a strategy, have a plan, make sure you're in alignment, bit of a litmus test, and then you can proceed.
Okay, cool. So I guess so one of the other things we always talk about is when it comes to business world as well, is like our health as well, right? So you've actually got businesses that actually involve health in there as well. But so I guess a lot of viewers here, a lot of fathers and stuff as well, and we're all fathers here as well. So like, how important is to be healthy for, I guess, balancing work and family, but as also to be good at business as well?
Your health is the single most important asset that you'll ever own. It comes before anything. If you don't have health, then nothing else can happen. If you drop dead tomorrow, then what's the business plan going to do for you? You can't serve your family, you can't help people, you can't do anything. So I think, unfortunately, our culture puts health on the back burner, and it's a slow regression. And people blame age. So age obviously is a thing that happens in reality, but also, I've played soccer with 26-year-olds that have told me I'm too old to play anymore, and I was like 15 years their senior, and saying, well, what am I doing here then? Just keep going. It's not an excuse. Like you have to, and I think people start to talk about that and say, well, I'm too old to do this, and then they stop doing it, and then everything starts to regress. So they, you start losing muscle mass. Like, so after 40, I think you lose 1% of muscle mass per year, and then that you start to put on weight, things start to compound, and then if you don't have high energy, how are you going to get up early in the morning? How are you going to motivate your peers? How are you going to motivate your staff? How are you going to stay up on those late nights when you need to? So that, I think it's everything. Good health, high energy. Without that fundamental block, you're disadvantaged.
What's your routine? What's your current routine to keep yourself sharp?
So I have a morning routine where I try to get up, and then I go through a series of stretches. So I've had some injuries in the past, which I've overcome through, I guess, having a regimented routine. So I do those neck and back stretches and postural sort of routine, and then I do my push-ups. I try to do 100 push-ups a day. Then I do my training session or go for a run, then have a cold shower, and then start the day. So and some visualization is very important. Keep you focused on where you're heading towards. So
where Sorry, what time do you wake up? Because that sounds like a 2.5 hour block before you start your day.
Look, it's a good question. I read a book called The 5 a.m. Club. So I was doing 5 a.m. starts for a long time. But then I started to experience a bit of burnout. So these days it's probably more along the lines of 6. It's probably a better number. And, having a young family as well, doing the bedtime routine and having time to do everything you need is probably about that. And, so I know some people that start their day at 3:30 a.m. I know some people that start their day at 10. And all successful. So I think it's sometimes each to your own, and obviously depends on, like, if you're working a 9 to 5, waking up at 10 is not going to, sit well with your employer, I'd imagine. But I think there is no steadfast number, but I think having a regimented routine that serves you, so basically ticks all the boxes, like the health, the flexibility, strength, because all these things are markers for longevity, they're markers for energy, they're markers for a successful business, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And what about sleep and cold showers? Tell us more about those.
Sleep, very important. So you can nurture, like you can set up a good nurturing environment for sleep. So start like LED lights. We turn off our LED lights and just have like incandescent globes in the evening. Screen time gets limited after a certain time. For the kids, 6. We also try not to watch TV and screens after a certain time. And then also like temperature of the room, like a cooler room is better for sleep. You have a better, deeper sleep. And so that's important. So sleep and
The cold showers.
Cold showers.
When did that start? How'd you get across it? Because I tried it, and
It's tough.
the first
It's not easy.
Especially in winter.
yeah, winter's like I did it initially. I was like putting one of those, like put one leg in and then sort of like because when it's like my back, that's when I was like, oh man, like,
But I think it's meant to be that shock factor, right?
Yeah,
That's isn't that
correct.
what helps you out?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I think it's a few things. So going back to, I started in Fiji in 2019, which was very easy because Fiji is a nice tropical climate. So a cold shower there is probably like, I don't know, 18 degrees or so, or 20 degrees. So I started there, then I brought that back to Sydney, which was cooler, and then went into the winter months, which is cooler again. And I started the same thing. It was just like put an arm in, put another arm in, put the leg in, put the leg in, and then kind of get underneath. Now I do ice baths. So every Sunday is 1 degree ice bath. We're in the water for 3 to 5 minutes, and it doesn't faze me. So I think it's not so much the shock factor. There's a lot of science around it. There's a lot of pros and cons. I think it can be detrimental in muscle recovery. So when you have just trained physically or done strength training, jumping straight into the ice bath stops a lot of those biological processes because you vasoconstrict all your extremities and you stop these healing processes which lead to recovery. So I think timing is important, and also why you're doing it. So there's like I think it helps with immunity. I feel like I very, very rarely get sick, and if I ever get sick, it's like all those around me that do get the same sickness, they're out of action for 4 or 5 days, and I like have a few symptoms for maybe 1 or 2 days, and it's gone. I think we live a very temperature controlled life. You're in your house, it's 22 degrees. You get in the car, it's 22 degrees. You put your aircon on. You go to work, it's 22 degrees. You go swimming, it's a heated pool. Everything's consistent. You go outside to collect the wash in the rain once, and then you get a cold and you're sick for a week. So I think it's important to vary your surroundings, and your body gets used to that too. I don't think like humans are made to be in a static temperature controlled environment. So you go from 18 degrees and you jump in 1 degree water, then you get out and you're fine, and it's you don't get sick, and it's psychological. I think, but the biggest reason I do it is the like mental toughness, I believe. So I don't want to get out of a warm bed and jump into a cold shower, but I do it, and after I do that, everything else seems easy. So that's just
nice.
Just doing those things that you don't want to do to get a result that you do want, and you just apply that to everything else. Is how I say it.
It's awesome.
Nice, man.
So do you find that sort of mentality? Because I know, you went through a few businesses, and even your family business, you have gone through some bit of hardships with like floods and stuff like that. Is that sort of mentality you need to sort of deal with those issues head on and sort of, take, like, is that, because I know you've been through quite a few of these sort of tougher times. So I guess by having that health, having that mental strength, that what sort of helps you get through it and sort of work through it instead of just sitting there and crying about it.
I like to think so. I think it makes it easier. Yeah, and yeah, getting into business, you have no idea what challenges get thrown at you, and Murphy's law. If it can go wrong, it often does, and you'll face those challenges. But yeah, if you have that grit and resilience to get through it, there's always a way out. And I think a lot of in this society, people like to take the easy path and give up and jump ship when things get tough. And just as we were talking about before, if you know where you want to get to and you have like absolute focus and trust and certainty that you'll get there, nothing can stop you. And that's the reality. There'll be setbacks, there'll be meandering, that there might be failure, there might be massive failure, there might be upsets, you might have to re-strategize, you might have to get finance, find a different business partner, but if you know that's your purpose, that's your cause, and you're going to get there, and it's there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah.
It's like that purpose, cause, helping, what you're good at and where you will shine. I think you had that stuff like ironed out quite early, right? Because you said don't want to sit behind a cubicle, but I can help out people by doing something else. And like you've obviously picked that up and gone, yep, I want to do that. That's huge, right? Like I'll have to just sit here, scramble on like a whiteboard, figure out what we're trying to do, and then tomorrow's the next day, we blank that conversation and carry on, right? It's incredible, right? Just to hear that.
Yeah.
So.
And look at, and the thing is, your life changes. Like you might, you start to have a family, your priorities change, and ultimately the goals and vision can change too. So it's not like, I set out to achieve X or Y, and I want a Lamborghini, and then you're about to get there, and you're like, by doing it, it might not fulfill your purpose anymore, because is that the best way to spend your children's inheritance, right? Or whatever. Like so it's okay for these things to change, but you just have to be aware and active and look short term, first a long term goal, and then you go backwards. So if you want to have 10 properties, well, okay, I want to have 10 properties. First, why do you want to have 10 properties? Like, it doesn't serve you. And if that's correct, then you work backwards. Okay, well then, how can I get to this? How can I get to one property? How can I, do I have to boost my income? Is my income sufficient? Do I, have to change my strategy to get there? And then once I get my first one, the second one, and then you have your map for it. And I know people with 300 properties because they had a plan.
Yeah. They get a formula and they just keep applying on it, right?
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I still find that incredible, right? Because it's like that's a practical, that continuous improvement mindset versus everyone does that shit talks, and then you have that generational of I could have done this if I had the right opportunity. Well, you did technically, you just chose not to act on it, right? So
I think perspective is very important. I was talking about this earlier today with someone that, like, if you took someone from like the feudal ages or like the Middle Ages, Dark Ages, and like even the king lived worse than what we live like now. Like, we have so much opportunity, and yet we still have so much depression. We have so much suicide. We have a lot of people that are dissatisfied because that perspective is lacking in our society, in my belief. So purpose is, I think humans can't thrive without purpose, and that's something that's not taught at school. You don't have a subject that's like, okay, let's just stop, be quiet, close your eyes, have a think about what you want, and let's focus on that. It's just like, okay, well, you go to the careers person, because I remember I went to our careers teacher, and I remember sitting down and I go, like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, can I have some guidance? And she said, well, when you work out what you want to do, come and see me. And I'm like, but well, how do I know what I want to do? Like, I haven't been exposed to all these different. So how do I find this purpose? Like, where am I going to go? It's just, and then like we were talking about last time as well. Like, so I ended up going through something where I thought I could help people, and it was, kind of closely matched to my UAI as well. Like, was that an omen? Was that a coincidence? I don't know. And I ultimately changed from that path anyway. So I think if you have that purpose, then everything becomes easier. And even like I see it in like the PT sort of world, when someone says, I want to drop 10 kilos. Cool. And they drop 10 kilos and then they put on 20 because they don't know why they dropped the 10 kilos. It's just like, well, I want to lose weight because I like it when I'm 80 kilos or whatever the number might be. But it's not, you have to change it to like, well, what's that mean? That means I'm going to be around longer for my kids. I'm going to be a more energetic partner. I'm going to be able to stay up later and work harder. I'm going to be like less tired. I'm going to have less strain on my knees because my joint problems might disappear. And once it becomes a lifestyle change, then it's easy. Yeah, it's sustainable. Same as diet. Like the word diet, in my view, has been murdered because what's diet mean? Oh well, it's a fad diet or a carnivore diet or a short-term diet. But diet's what you eat day to day. So I'm going to change what I eat day to day to something I don't like. And I'm expecting to get a long-term result. It's like, no, it's going to fall apart. So then let's be realistic. Let's trade out a few things. Let's make it sustainable. And then like, okay, well, I've cut my calories back. I've replaced a few high energy drinks with maybe like water or juices or something like that, or like watered down juices. And then suddenly your calories come down, you start to feel better, and then you're able to make small changes. So it's, I was having an argument with someone. They were saying, these little shifts don't result in big change, but yes, they do. Like the 1%ers, and I think I've talked about this before. Like a 1% shift per day compounded across 365 days is a 3,800% change, 38 times better. So if you get 1% faster every day, on top of that, compounding, or 1%, better at anything, it's the dividends are there and it's sustainable. Like if you try to say, okay, well tomorrow I'm going to stop smoking, I'm going to stop drinking, I'm going to stop hanging out with my mates too late at night, I'm going to stop, and you try to go cold turkey on everything, often it results in failure. So it's about making small measurable changes and sustainable lifestyle.
Sustainable change. That's critical because what happens either you go, I want to look like Arnie, just as a result, look like this. What's the fastest way? I can't do it naturally, so I'm just going to start injecting straight away. Take a shortcut, right? And then that's what happens, right? Because then you got really young kids, not going that, it takes years and years and years to put on muscle. They're 19, injecting them full, and then they can't produce test or anything right? After naturally, right? Because now they've blown it all, right? And you don't realize you only got one shot at your body. That's it. You don't get a second shot, right?
And then you're either on TRT for life, or you've got like insanely low test levels for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly right. And then, but at the time, they're 20, just want to be a poster boy or whatever it is, right? And you're like, actually, just think about this a bit longer term, right? Or if you look like Ronnie Coleman, like the bloke now can't walk, right? Because he's got so many like spinal injuries, right? Like powerlifting when he was, completely dehydrated, right? So it's just incredible.
We touched on something, Phil, and maybe something that we can wrap up on: men's health, mental health, suicide rates and stuff across men, larger than ever, largest in the world, particularly at the moment. You talked about purpose. What do you reckon is driving a lot of that? There's some things that are driving that, things like social media, self-obsession, consumerism, that kind of turns people to be very self-centered in how they view life, but that also harms them. But what do you think is driving that in, say, this 20, 30, 40 year male bracket? And you're obviously passionate about this space as well, so just keen to hear your thoughts, because I think it's a good topic for us as well, not just us and our friends, but also for people who work in this space, because I'm sure people suffer from different things at different times.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's multifaceted. So I think there's a bit of a society, particularly in Australia. So there's a cultural problem where it's not manly to talk about your problems. So men internalize their issues. And also I think we've lost like that tribe mentality. So like once you go into kind of your family group, you become married, a lot of these men become ostracized from a lot of their male networks and connection. And as a result, they don't have that interaction. They don't have those facilities to be able to open up and talk about issues, and they start to feel alone, and they start to internalize these problems, and then these problems start to become, you lose sight of how big they are, and they become your world, and they start to circle. And I think people start to go down that path where they feel they're trapped and there's no other way out. Or that it might be the financial problem, might be relationship problems, might be drug abuse, it might be alcohol abuse, which all kind of spiral and start to go in hand. So I think that loss of that connection with other men in groups. Also, I think just social media, a lot of those short dopamine hits. So where even our kids now, the shows like compared to where we were watching like Arthur and Baba and stuff like that. If you watch one of those episodes, you'll see a scene play out, and they seem boring now because not that much happens. A scene takes a while to change, and that you watch a show now, they'll change scenes. 3 seconds will be. It's constant. It's like a reel. It's they're constantly getting stimulated. So it starts at that age, and then everything you expect instant dopamine hits now, bang, 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 and then suddenly you're in your life and you got a dirty house you got to clean, or you've got to go to your job for 9 to 5 and sit there for hours, and we don't have these tools to be able to cope with the this change of environment, and so I think that's another big issue. So like I said, I'm working with a group called Kaizen Path, and they do Sunday sessions in Kellyville. Anyone who's in the area, or we get people that travel from Bronte, the mountains, that travel to us, and we're looking at doing expansion as well into other areas. We guys can just catch up, we talk, we do some physical training. It's 7 a.m, so we get the sun on the face, like in the skin, and able to get that vitamin D, and talk to each other. We do the training sessions, and then we finish with an ice bath, and we usually go out and grab a feed after if the guys have time. If not, they can go home to their families or other commitments and start the day, and that's only from 7 till 8, and it gives people a purpose and like some more certainty, and they're able to interact and talk and see that sometimes these issues aren't so special to yourself. Like we're not that special. Like everyone goes through this, but we don't realize it just becomes internalized. So then someone might be having a relationship issue, and someone else might as well, and then they can open up to each other and say, well, they can talk and network and build skills and be able to work out what the issue is. They might be causing the problem, they might not be causing the problem, but they're able to externalize. And then once you can kind of see these pieces, and it becomes more less taboo, then you can talk about it, and then it's very easily addressed versus this internal cyclone of thoughts, which I think men get trapped in, and it's also the work-life balance, I believe, as well. So I think Japan was the leader, and so I'm not sure if we've overtaken, but they've got a very severe work culture where they work their 9 to 5 is actually like when I went to Japan, more like 7 till 9 p.m. because they all stay back. They all have to try to be appeasing to the boss, and if you go home early once, then you're kind of struck off the list and you got to start again. So I think work culture is another factor in Australia as well, definitely.
It's really good to see the work that you're doing, man, with your various initiatives, and it's good to keep talking about this as well. I know we kind of mentioned it in a few episodes too. It's something that's near and dear to our hearts, and it's good to kind of firstly normalize it, but also I think one of the things you spoke about there, lads hanging out together and stuff, and community. I talk about this with my wife. It's like sometimes we make a joke out of it when we want to see the guys, but it's actually really important for our mental health as well. And, we're thankful that we live in a country where we can, mates live close by, family lives close by, so it's easier to travel around to see each other. So yeah, definitely resonate with a lot of what you said there, and I think it's a pretty important topic. Yeah,
and I think the ability. So sometimes it's like a partner might think, giving an hour away that they could be spending with the family, but by letting the partner, go for this 1 hour and they come back a better partner. They come back, refreshed. They come back. That's right. Sharper. Work on their fitness and health, and then ultimately, it leads to better things for everyone. Yeah, for sure.
Are we cutting that and just replaying that out to our missus in the family chats?
Send it in a soundbite. But seriously, like one of the things I think I've found worked. I know, like we kind of talk about this, like asking permission from your partner or your wife. I'm very big on I think we as men sometimes know what we need to keep our minds ticking or reset us. Like for me, sometimes it's like a big run or big weight session, or I just need to go cricket nets or something. And like I've told my wife from when we got married, when I need this time, I need that time. Like it's kind of like a non-negotiable. unless like the house is burning down, I'm not going to be like, I'm going for a run. But these are times I think we as men as well, like we know what helps our body, we know what helps our minds. We just need to carve out the time for ourselves. Sometimes instead of, having other stuff creep into that, like work or, things that might be useful and helpful or necessary, but we know we need to get it's like the whole oxygen mask in the plane thing, right? We need to kind of put the oxygen mask on us first before we can help do other stuff. Anyway, we've gone a very, very deep topic. I'll hand it back to you here, but this is also important, right? Because we're all working individuals, working professionals, particularly in this podcast. We talk to accountants, finance leaders, people in various situations, sometimes very high stress situations. And so we want to keep these topics at the forefront of our minds as well.
Yeah. And just real quick, obviously the wife also needs these same sort of outlets too, right? Which I think is important to mention as well, right? So it's better for the relationship, the dynamic, the family group to...
I agree, 100%. Like, especially all of us, most of us, like viewers, like dad and things like that. Like, you need that time to get your mental health in check, and I guess it's good for the kids as well, right? Good for everyone involved. So, as I'm saying, thanks for coming down and doing the episode with us. So, I guess where can we find your podcast?
Yeah, so it's on Spotify and YouTube, I believe. So it's The Critical Mass, and if you search, I think my name as well, Phil Diasinos, it should come up. I'll provide you the links. And
we'll have the links on there, bro. Don't worry. It's top 10 on Spotify this week.
Yeah. It's trending 6 weeks.
So I guess to everyone there, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and liking this video, and we'll hopefully find more guests, and we'll get more episodes like this in the future. So thanks for coming down.
Cheers.
Thanks so much,
Thanks
guys.
for coming on,
All
Phil.
Hey, like this episode? Follow our channel for all things finance and accounting for your business. Get in touch with us if you have any questions, and we may feature it on the pod.
Realize one day